Welcome to Law Days and Lattes, the podcast where we blend the world of law and business with a warm cup of information and common sense. I'm your host, Sidney, attorney, real estate investor, and business owner. Each week, we'll be your go-to source for legal insights, business advice, and so much more. Whether you're a seasoned professional, an ambitious entrepreneur, or simply someone seeking guidance, we'll have you covered. From navigating the legal landscape to empowering you with valuable business strategies, we'll explore the legal side of life and enjoy a virtual latte along the way. So, grab your favorite latte, get comfortable, and let's dive in to Law Days and Lattes. Welcome back to Law Days and Lattes, the podcast where we talk about the law in a way that's practical, empowering, and real. I'm your host, Sidney, founder of the Whelan Law Firm, now serving North Central Missouri businesses and families in 3 convenient locations, Moberly, Carrollton, and now in Paris. In the last episode, we talked about risks most people don't like to think about until they're forced to. Lawsuits, divorce, disability, death, economic downturns. That conversation can feel heavy, but today's episode, I hope, is different because this one is about control, not control over life. None of us have control over life, but control over how prepared you are when life happens. Protection isn't about predicting the future either. It's about putting guardrails in place so that one event doesn't undo everything you've built. Protection is a system, not a single document. One of the biggest misunderstandings I see is this idea that there's one document that fixes everything. There isn't. Protection works in layers. Think of it like a fence, not a lock. Multiple barriers, multiple points of defense. You don't need every layer on day one, but you do need to be intentional about which ones you add and when. Let's talk about entity structures, the first line of defense. If you own a business, rental property, or income-producing activity, structure matters. The right entity can separate personal assets from business risk, define ownership and control, limit liability and financial exposure if they're used correctly. So let's say that again. The right entity, not just any entity. And by entities, I mean trusts, LLCs, and sometimes corporate structures for some circumstances. Separate bank accounts for each of your separate entities. Contracts in the correct entity's name, and clear boundaries between personal and business money. An entity doesn't protect you because it exists. Just creating an LLC or setting up a trust doesn't protect you. It protects you because you respect it and use it correctly. Let's talk about contracts. Clarity prevents conflict. Many legal problems start as misunderstandings. Contracts reduce those misunderstandings. Well-drafted agreements define expectations, allocate risk, and clarify responsibilities. Who pays for what? Who is responsible for certain tasks? Are there procedures in place if conflicts develop? And they will develop. Contracts reduce emotional decision-making later by making those tough decisions before conflicts arise. Maybe this will prevent certain conflicts altogether. This applies to contracts between business partners, clients, vendors, property arrangements, and even family-run operations. Maybe especially family operations. If something matters enough to argue about later, it certainly matters enough to document it now. Next, insurance. One of those necessary things, but it's not totally sufficient to protect you. Remember, insurance is an important layer, but it's not a strategy by itself. Insurance transfers risk, but doesn't eliminate exposure, and it doesn't fix poor structure. What types of insurance do you need? Well, that depends. Coverage should match your real risk, your actual operations, and the current values of your assets. And it should be coordinated with, but not substituted for legal planning. Then there's estate planning. This is protection during your life, not just after death. I find that estate planning is often misunderstood as something you do for after you're gone. In reality, some of the most important protections happen while you're still alive. Documents that matter now include your durable powers of attorney, healthcare directives, trusts that are designed for incapacity, and business succession provisions. These documents, when carefully drafted, keep decisions out of court, maintain continuity, protects family during crises, and it prevents financial paralysis or financial disasters. This is where protection and peace of mind intersect. Let's talk about ownership and beneficiary designations. Remember, ownership controls outcomes. So do beneficiary designations. Assets don't pass based on intention alone. They pass based on title and paperwork. It makes little difference if you intended to get something done. The protection only happens if you take that first step and actually get a plan in place. This includes plans for your real estate, your bank accounts, retirement accounts, life insurance, and business assets. When ownership and planning don't align, courts, and often chaos, fills the gaps. Not what any of us want for our families. I recently heard someone say that protection is about reducing the blast radius. What does that even mean? Here's a concept I want you to remember. Protection doesn't eliminate risk. It limits how far the damage can spread. The goal is that one lawsuit doesn't take everything you own. One illness doesn't stop income entirely. One death doesn't create confusion and conflict between family members or business partners. And one downturn doesn't unravel years of hard work. That's what good planning does. We may not be able to prevent all of the horrible things that life can throw at us, but good planning can go a long way to minimize the blast radius by limiting your exposure to the things that can go wrong. In closing, ask yourself this. If I had to strengthen just one layer this year, what would it be? Is it your business that's been on your mind? Do you worry about your family if something would happen to you? You don't need to do everything at once. Most likely, you don't have it all figured out. You don't need to have it all figured out, but you do need to start. Maybe it's simply jotting down a list of questions that you might have. Maybe it's just making one phone call to schedule an appointment to talk to a lawyer about some options that might work for your family. I promise you, you'll be glad you did. Remember, protection isn't about fear. It's leadership. It's taking responsibility for what's yours and responsibility for the empire you're building, whether that's your business, your family, or the life of your dream. It deserves to be protected. I'm Sidney Whelan, and this is Law Days and Lattes, where we talk about building with intention, protecting what matters, and passing on a legacy worth keeping. If this message resonated with you, tune in with me each week. Subscribe, share, and start thinking differently about what protection means to you. Have a great week, my friends.
This podcast episode contains general information for discussion purposes only. Each case is different and must be judged on its own merits. Missouri rules generally prohibit lawyers from advertising that they specialize in particular areas of the law. This show should not be construed to suggest such specialization. Nothing on this show should be taken as legal advice for any individual case or situation. This information is not intended to create an attorney-client relationship, and the listening or viewing of this podcast does not constitute an attorney-client relationship. The choice of a lawyer is an important decision and should not be based solely upon advertisements.